Hi everybody, welcome to What Culture's YouTube channel. My name is Scott Tailford and we're going to look at the most replayable games this side of 2000. So let's start with the Metal Gear Solid series. There's been like a whole heap of releases ever since 2000, and then, the first game was amazing in itself. But if you're going to narrow one game down just for, sheer amount of things you can see, bosses you can tackle, memorable characters, all around, just amazing aesthetic, and we have to go with Metal Gear Solid 3. Plenty of people still return to the game now just for the sake of going back to it and trying to catch a Karakan frog, or trying to tackle Volden again, or just to punch Raiden in the face again, which is always fun. Oh god, I mean, of all the games that we could go for, I know it feels like, why would you put this on the list? It's clearly just some sort of Guantanamo Bay-esque torture device masquerading itself as a video game, but at the same time, if you confess to yourself, it is actually pretty fun. Super Meat Boy is kind of the perfect platformer, taking everything that's gone before it and packaging it into this really hard, arduous, just annoying but so satisfying platforming game. So over to one of the best racing games of all time. I mean, there's been a lot in these days. Chances are you would end up referring to something like Forza, or you'd get all excited because the new Gran Turismo is coming out and it's really, really shiny. But if you go back all the way to 2004, something like Burnout was just this giant, blurry, crazy, amazing cataclysm of color. Burnout 1 was great, but it was just a bit of a mess. 2 was good, but 3 definitely capitalized on it with the introduction of online play, the just vast variety of cars, which was still unlicensed, but that just meant they could mangle the hell out of them, and it was fantastic. So yeah, Burnout 3, pretty damn special. Remember the first time you explored Rapture? None of us had really experienced a world that was portrayed in such a way. As much as we like taking out splicers and exploring the place and shooting things up, the vast majority of the appeal of Bioshock just comes from exploring the audio diaries. And when all things are said and done, as much as you'll start trying to figure out everything that's just happened in terms of that final plot twist turning everything on its head, the fact that you'll just want to go right back in and dive back into the start before any of that had become known really makes it one of the best narratives in gaming history. And now over to one of the most divisive games of all time, the supremely unforgiving and just endlessly annoying and torturously hard Dark Souls. There's not really anything else like it. I mean, it kind of takes old school game mechanics and tropes and just funnels them through modern day graphics and systems to create something really, truly special. The game's difficulty will put you off from a bit of a distance, but if you really sit down and learn the mechanics, which is to say, unlearning everything else that you've previously known about gaming, it's endlessly rewarding and endlessly replayable, mainly because you'll spend most of your time with the game learning how to not have your backside handed to you. So these days, even though Square might be kind of slightly dropping the ball when it comes to Final Fantasy, back in 2000, Final Fantasy IX was just another revolution on the heights of, I'm going to say it, Final Fantasy VII. I mean, a lot of people won't even go anywhere near Final Fantasy VII in terms of comparisons, but if we're really kind of honest, 9 had that special just combination of awesome characters, great dialogue, fantastic set pieces. Who doesn't love Vivi? That's one of the best characters of all time. So when you put all that together, Final Fantasy IX is definitely one of the most replayable, if not the most replayable Final Fantasy game of all time. And now one of the most important games of all time, endlessly replayable, endlessly appealing to every single generation that lives on this earth. Now you're probably racking your brains, what can that be? Well, it's Wii Sports. I mean, what else is it going to be? You try and think of anyone in your remote vicinity, or even in, you go a few city blocks over who hasn't heard of Wii Sports and hasn't played it. It single-handedly proved that motion controls can actually work in an amazing way that brings the whole family together. You can't deny the success of Wii Sports. It's one of the most accessible and just downright fun games that have ever came out in the last decade. What can be said about World of Warcraft these days that hasn't already been said a million times before? Chances are that you already know everything about World of Warcraft, but if for some reason you don't, then, it's the biggest, well, it's a huge deal. It's the biggest, most epic, massive multiplayer online game of all time, and it's still going now. Even expansion packs, some 10 years after its initial release, are still being unveiled. In terms of creating an online world that people can genuinely live in, Warcraft is completely unparalleled. Remember the first time you played Grand Theft Auto 3? I mean, it seems kind of crazy now because of the size of GTA 5 and the fact that it can essentially buy half the earth with the amount of money that thing made. But back when GTA 3 came out, it was amazing. I mean, how many times did we go back to Liberty City just for the sake of driving somewhere? Considering how far the series has come, GTA 3, when you really think about it, is the one that we kind of pretty much lived in as much as possible, even though the protagonist might have not said as much as we wanted them to. So yeah, to the number one spot. I mean, what can be the most replayable game of all time other than Skyrim? Even the people that have devoted entire lifetimes to learning every single system that there is can't actually say that they've finished the game. The game procedurally generates content based on what you've done and where you've been before. So even if you think you've finished the main quest and decide to put that one to bed, if you dive back into Skyrim, it will think of things for you to do. It will take you to lands that you haven't been to. So when it comes to a game that you really just can't get enough of, or that is endlessly rewarding, regardless of gameplay mechanics and story, and just things to see, Skyrim's pretty unparalleled. So what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Is there something really big that we've somehow missed? I mean, there's a full article available in the link in the description, so feel free to check that out and make sure you subscribe for more content like this. Thanks.